50 Years of Peace on the Santa Ana River, a story about conflict, cooperation, and collaboration. The Santa Ana River is the largest river in Southern California. It begins in the San Bernardino Mountains and flows downstream to Prado Dam in Riverside County, into Orange County, and out into the Pacific Ocean. The river meanders 96 miles through diverse terrain: alpine forest, arid desert, chaparral environments, and flat coastal plains. The Serrano and Tongva Indian tribes lived along the banks of the Santa Ana River for thousands of years, drawn there by the vegetation and wildlife associated with each ecological region of the river's watershed. The Portola expedition crossed the Santa Ana River in 1769 and gave it its name. Life in the region changed with the coming of the missionaries that drew its irrigation water from nearby groundwater springs and marshlands for its fields and other areas along the river. According to Spanish law, no individual could claim the right to a stream flow. The Sanjero or Watermaster was charged with the responsibility of allocating water in proportion to the needs of the people and the quantity available. In 1810, Jose Yorba and his nephew Juan Peralta were granted rights from the Spanish government to graze cattle on the Rancho Santiago in Santa Ana. Yorba and Peralta diverted water to irrigate their crops and pasture land on the rancho. It wasn't until after the gold rush began that the commercial demand for perishable goods grew. A group of German immigrants established a vineyard colony near the Santa Ana River. Once the vineyards were established, the colonists took possession on individual plots of land and established a mutual water company, Anaheim Water Company, to contribute to administer their irrigation works. By the mid-1870s, land developers in present-day Santa Ana, Orange, and Tustin created the Semi-Tropic Water Company and were establishing new communities throughout the region. As people moved into the riverside area and developed orchards, they used more of the water upstream from the ranchos for irrigation, allowing less to flow down to the coastal plain. The diminished flow would not have been a problem in the wet years, but 1877 was a dry year, and the river ran nearly dry at the ditch intake for Anaheim farmers. As a result, Anaheim sued Semi-Tropic to regain its volume share of the river water. 10 years later, the parties agreed to an equitable division of the water and to devote their money to proper development and use of it. By this time, the parties had joined with other small ditch owners north and south of the river, and as a result of the consolidations, two private water companies commanded the flow of the river in the Santa Ana Valley. They continued to supply water to their customers until the 1960s, when the Orange County Water District purchased the jointly held land and water rights to prevent their purchase by upstream users. In 1963, two major lawsuits were filed regarding surface water and groundwater pumping rights across the entire watershed that encompassed more than 4,000 litigants. One lawsuit was filed by the Western Municipal Water District and the other by the Orange County Water District. To simplify the process, it was agreed that there would be four representative parties: Orange County Water District, Western Municipal Water District, San Bernardino Valley Municipal Water District, and Inland Empire Utilities Agency, formerly known as the Chino Basin Municipal Water District. On April 17, 1969, both lawsuits came to an end. The Orange County judgment provides water users in the lower basin rights to receive minimum and average flows. Compliance is measured at Riverside Narrows and Prado Dam. Valley District is required to maintain the minimum base flows at Riverside Narrows. Western and IEUA are responsible for meeting their own minimum base flow requirements at Prado Dam. In addition to the base flow obligations specified in judgment, OCWD is also entitled to all storm flows reaching Prado Dam. Water users in the upper basin area have rights to divert, pump, extract, conserve, store, and use all surface and groundwater supplies, so long as the lower basin receives its water flow requirements. The Western San Bernardino judgment laid out a framework for dividing water resources in the San Bernardino area, Colton Basin, and Riverside Basin area between San Bernardino and Riverside counties. Together, these judgments, known as the 1969 settlement, created two Watermaster committees. The Santa Ana River Watermaster Committee is composed of one member from IEUA, Western and Valley District, and two members from OCWD. The Western San Bernardino is composed of one member from Western and Valley District. Each Watermaster Committee submits an annual report to the court to demonstrate compliance with the judgments.
There were so many different parties that were involved in suing each other in the lawsuits. And we were able to kind of boil it down to a few parties and then come to some sort of a settlement, which doesn't always happen with water because water issues are so contentious.
It's hard to plan your water future if you're not sure what water is yours or what water is not yours, and you actually have to make sure that water is flowing to somebody else.
If you're going to resolve a fight, you have to understand everything that's happening to come up with a resolution. So if you're not doing the accounting on where the water really is and what the flows are, how would you ever come up with a resolution? So, as any good team of lawyers and engineers would develop a set of rules that says, well, let's first figure out how much flow there is and basically figure out what the game is, and then we'll decide how to play it.
We really took a macro view or a regional view. So the entire lower region of the watershed, as a group, got certain rights. The guarantee of a minimum flow of water. The entire group of the upstream water agencies got certain benefits too. Again, being able to control their own destiny. So that's what I think makes this one unique. And by the way, I think that's what makes it more resilient, because it's really hard to argue with this global look at how water resources should be managed.
The judgment's very unique in that it basically says what needs to happen at two locations, but it doesn't prescribe specifically the path to getting there, and let that open for the agencies to develop.
The accomplishments made over the last 50 years owe a great deal to the contributions made by the former and current members that have served on the committees. We celebrate their past, present, and future contributions to water supply and the environment through the Santa Ana River watershed. Gordon Anderson, Chief of Planning in 1969 for the California Regional Water Quality Control Board, reflected back to the time immediately following the settlements and said that after nearly a decade in court and a short cooling-off period, it is not too surprising to find that the four large water districts began exploring ways to avoid a recurrence of what they had been through. Discussions of legal matters drifted to projects of mutual interest. It's through a multi-agency cooperation in the watershed that agencies are able to secure water supplies for urban uses while also mitigating environmental impacts. The settlement allows for future changes in hydrology, agency actions, and governance. The original engineers, attorneys, water professionals, and other stakeholders anticipated potential future changes and thus prepared a document that could be amended. This flexibility has allowed the settlement to maintain peace over the last 50 years, as well as preparing for peace for the next 50 years. From conflict to successful cooperation and collaboration, here's to the next 50 years of peace along the Santa Ana River.